Morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms, and our invocation this morning is by Phil. How's this? Our invocation this morning is by Phil Tobin. Please rise for the invocation.
Thank you, Ron. You know, I was preparing for this last night, thinking of this invocation. It was in September of 1955 that I stood before a flag and joined the U.S. Navy. And so I really oriented this invocation to those who served proudly in the services of our country. Heavenly Father, as we pause to remember those in our military who have given their lives for freedom we enjoy, for your strength, comfort, and guidance, be with all who have served in the armed services. Bless them and their families. Grant your loving protection. Let peace prevail among all nations. Especially let your mercy rest upon our land. Preserve the lives of those who serve to defend us. In your holy name, we ask it. Amen.
Thank you, Phil. And now our pledge and four-way test be led by Philip Budo.
Morning. Join with me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the four-way test. First. Second, fair to all concerned. Third, our friendships. And fourth, beneficial to all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our president, Father Joe Boisel. And now to introduce our speaker, David Basil. I thought he was going to do it then.
You can tell this was not well rehearsed. Thank you, Ron. Well, this morning, it is my pleasure and indeed my great honor to introduce our speaker, Summit County Executive Ilene Shapiro. Executive Shapiro is serving her second term as Summit County Executive. As executive, she leads 10 unique departments and serves as the Chief Fiduciary Officer for the county, managing a budget of over $500 million. In holding this office, Executive Shapiro strives to make a positive impact on the lives of all Summit County residents. She is the first woman in Ohio to serve as county executive. She is a champion for innovative projects and initiatives that foster collaboration and position Summit County and its 31 municipalities to succeed. Under her leadership, the county has led the charge to negotiate the largest financial settlements with opioid manufacturers and distributors, utilize innovative tactics to attract new and existing business investment, improve security conditions at the county jail, implement cost-saving measures for a new state-of-the-art consolidated 911 dispatch system, and place emphasis on workforce diversity. While leading the county forward, she exercises responsible financial management practices and continues to maintain Summit County's strong credit rating. Executive Shapiro previously served on Summit County Council for 10 years. 3 of those years, she led the county's 11-member policymaking body as council president. Prior to her career in public service, she worked in the corporate business world and was a small business owner. She is well known for her support of women in business and philanthropy. She is a longtime resident of Summit County and currently resides in Akron. And I will share with you from a perspective of being a local elected official, the collaboration and willingness to collaborate by the county with its municipalities is extraordinary. and Executive Shapiro's leadership of an outstanding team is beyond reproach. So please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome to Summit County Executive Ilene Shapiro.
Well, good morning, everybody. Okay, let's try that again. Good morning, everybody. Okay, thank you. It's great to be in Hudson, and I'm happy to be here today. Some of you know that I just got back late yesterday and had an event last night, and I'm here bright and early this morning with you. So let me ask you a question to start with. Who has any clue, and Dr. Getz, you're not allowed to answer this question. Who has any clue, and neither is Deb, about what the county does? Don't be so, okay, couple of hands that are going up. Nobody seems to know. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what we do here at the county. But before I start, let me tell you that I see my role to be highly strategic, highly facilitated, and highly relationship driven. We have 31 different entities in Summit County. Some have mayors, some have township trustees, some are reelected, some are not reelected, some have one vision. Our role is to help each community foster what it is that they need in their community, but also look at the big picture things that we need to do to move our communities forward as a whole. Some of the projects that you're going to hear about for us are always opt-ins, meaning that the communities choose to come in and participate. And some will jump in right away, and some will look at it and say, does that fit? Doesn't it fit? Now, we'll talk about our centralized dispatch. Now we're getting calls because we will have 18 going out the gate. 18 of our 31 communities, and I'm getting ahead of myself, will be part of our centralized dispatch. And now we have other communities calling and saying, how can we get into that? Because the technology and things that no one community by itself could afford to do, we can do collectively. And in the meantime, the communities, these are your dispatchers, okay? Working across party lines, across geographic lines to take care of our residents. So there's just a little precursor. So next slide. So we are the 4th largest county in the state of Ohio. So I won't give you the county names, but you've got Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati are the 3 biggest ones. Those are the cities, not the counties. We are the 4th largest. We're over half a million people. We are a large geographic county as well, over 412 miles. There are 88 counties in the state of Ohio. 86 of them are run with county commissioners. 2 are run with county executives. Summit County has been running with an executive form of office for the last over 40 years now. Cuyahoga started about 8 years ago. We operate under a charter form of government. Looks more like your federal or state government. Normally, the counties are, don't want to say run, are really an arm of the state of Ohio. In Summit County and in Cuyahoga County, the 2 with executives, we have some home rule options that the others don't because we run under our own charter form of government with an executive and an 11-member council here in Summit County. The structure in Cuyahoga County under their charter is completely different. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So as I said, we've had the charter since 1981. Every 5 years, we sit down and we look and say, okay, how should we update this? What changes? The world changes. We need to stay contemporary with us. So at one point we didn't have a chief information officer. We now have a chief information officer that's consolidated on under all of the elected officials in Summit County at the county level, not at the local level. Akron is our county seat. And again, we talked about the 31 communities, 14 cities, 8 villages, and 8 townships. So you can see it's a very diverse group geographically and the structure of the county. Okay. So most counties in Ohio are expansion of state government. The authority is limited by the state legislature. And so it's very, very restrictive. But some in Cuyahoga, as I said, are special. We have the home rule advantage. Now, not to tell you that this gives us free run, because we still have a lot of ties to the state, but it does give us some flexibility. Okay. So in addition to the 31 communities, we have a slew of elected officials at the county level. So here's the executive. We have a clerk of courts. We have a council that's 11 members. It was mentioned before. We elect a sheriff, we elect a prosecutor, we elect a fiscal officer, we elect an engineer, and we elect a load of judges. Okay. So not only do we have a lot of elected officials and governments to work with in our communities, we also at the county level have a lot of elected officials. Where the rubber meets the road with all of these folks that are up here is with the budget. All of that comes through the executive's office. Okay, we are the chief fiduciary administrative, but the sheriff runs the jail. The clerk of courts runs the clerk of courts. But the money, I can tell you though, when anything's a hiccup, guess what? They call the executive's office and say, executive, what are you doing? What do you think? Which is great because that's the collaboration that you need in order to move things forward. If anybody has a question, just put your hand up. I do know this stuff. Okay, next slide. So I talked a little bit before about my philosophy and how I see my role. I don't believe we can get anything done unless we work together. I'm not telling you that that's easy. Everybody's got an opinion and everybody's got a thought. But I am telling you that if we're not talking to each other and sitting down and trying to figure out what we can do collectively and individually to move our communities forward, we have over 540,000 residents here in Summit County, and we are elected to represent them and do the best that we can. And no one person can do that alone. So it's a little bit of cat herding, relationship building, keeping in contact with people, being out here and talking to the public and finding out what people think and feel. And I'm going to tell you, because I see all 31 communities, every community is different. It has its own flavor. And that speaks to the diversity of our population and what we can do, but also what we need to do to move things forward. So as it was mentioned before, I am the Chief Fiduciary Administrative Budgetary and Contracting Authority for the county. I have an amazing team. Some of you met Deb this morning. Again, internally, I can't do what I do without that. These are very thought-provoking, problem-solving, inquisitive people that know on my team, that know their work and know that public service is a great thing to do, and they spend their days doing that. So we talked about this before, the different departments that we run. We are also we use the term social service safety net for people in our community. Those people that perhaps have lost a job or have lost a home. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the CARES initiative and what we did during that. People don't know the medical examiner, the coroner works for me, which was a surprise to me, by the way, when I got on council. But all of the folks, the opioid epidemic, when you talked about the lawsuit, and we'll mention that later again, all of that comes through the medical examiner. Do you know in some parts of our state, you don't have to have any kind of license or any kind of certification to be a coroner? A what? Did you say? Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Okay. So Uncle Sam or Aunt Mary down the street could be making medical decisions on how somebody's certified to die. We have a very professional, she's top-notch doc. We call her doc. Anyway, there's a whole lot of stuff that we do behind the scenes, sewer, water, I could go on and on and on. So it's a lot of those things that you don't see that just kind of happen, that's the county. Next slide. So we always talk about forward-thinking investments. How will it help our community? Sounds like some of the things that I heard that the Rotary focuses on earlier this morning. Who can we bring to the table? Pursue the greater good. And how can we pursue, at the end of the day, make lives for our residents better? That's the bottom line. That's what we're here to do. So again, I can't do it. So we talked about the 31 communities. We have a whole slew of nonprofits and for-profit organizations that we work with. Here are just a few of them. Direction Home, our seniors group. The Greater Akron Chamber and all the local chambers that we work with, Children's Services. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Stark State College, but they have been a tremendous asset. They now have a location in Summit County. And I cannot tell you the good work that they're doing. It's just amazing, along with our University of Akron. The DFA is a development arm that we use for economic development. It's not a county entity, but it is an extension of what we used to, it's a funding agency. Summit Disabilities, our ADM board, drug and alcohol, the land bank. Back in 2008, we did, we're talking about how many vacant and abandoned houses were in Summit County. There were 5,000 folks. 5,000. So we created a land bank. It was a challenge because we did not want to go to the taxpayers and ask for money to support vacant and abandoned houses. So we found a formula that worked. I think it was being done in Lorain County. And we took that and we massaged it to fit Summit County. And this land bank has just done amazing, amazing things. We knew that over time that glut would go down. So we wanted to build the land bank in a position that they could do creative and things. So for example, they are now doing some commercial work. They're taking out some of those tanks under the gas stations that have been abandoned and some of those kinds of things. They have a cool project. If there's a house over here and land that's been abandoned or a house that's been abandoned here, and there's another house over here, this one gets taken down. And then the neighbors, for very, very little money, I think there's just a fee involved. Some of them will buy that empty parcel, put a park in there, put some swings in there, split it between the two neighbors, and just really add to their community at a very, very low cost. So we wanted to build that so it would be innovative and be able to function, again, keep contemporary with where our times are. This is simply to say, this is just a handful. We work with nonprofits and for-profits. Our philanthropic groups have been major assets to some of the projects that we have put together as well. Okay. These are just some of the projects, and I'll go into more detail about it. Your Area K projects, we're assessing the potential future updates and improvements to stormwater and sewer system right here in Hudson. Arlington Vallington Farms, the county provided job training. They've been out to that company. It is really a cool company and their food is really good. So if you haven't tried it, go buy it. We'll talk about the broadband project, excuse me, a little bit later in detail. But you already have, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. You already have broadband, which is internet here in Hudson. They've got their own, you've got your own utility here. This is, we are going to think of it this way, 125-mile ring all around Summit County. The foundation of this is public safety. So all of our communities will be hooked up, our city halls, our opportunity zones, and so on and so forth. So that will be a conduit for public safety on top of what we'll talk about, the centralized dispatch as we go forward. Again, it is an opt-in. All 31 of our communities, they're different. Hudson has their own, so they might use only a portion of what we have or whatever. Fairlawn, the Fairlawn gig has their own utility. They are a centerpiece of what we're doing, but we're all talking about how we can bring that together. So they tell me, and I'm not the techie person, but they tell me that if everything went to pot out in the internet, they could literally pull this system off and run it as an intranet so that our public safety and our schools and whoever else was on it would be able to function. I think that's pretty cool. So, okay. Next slide. Okay. A few years back, the opiate situation was raging. It still is, by the way. It still is. Did any of you see the news with the candies now? They're making them look like candies, like they're pinks and blues. What's that little candy that comes in? They're not, yeah, Skittles. Okay. And they're a little bit bigger than that, look like candy, and they're pushing them. They're fentanyl. They're pushing them to the kids now. Makes you crazy. Anyway, So the opiate deaths were rising, just awful stuff, awful stuff. And I'd had it. And so I filed a lawsuit. I declared a state of emergency in Summit County and I filed a lawsuit against the manufacturers. And Deb, who is sitting here, was a major player in the negotiations. And everybody's saying, why are you doing that? I said, I don't know whether we're going to get any money or not, but I wanted to send the message, stop. It's the only way to tell people this is not okay, folks. So 2,000 cases were brought together, and Deb will raise her hand if I'm saying something that's not right. 2,000 cases were enjoined together in federal court up in Cuyahoga County. Judge Polster up there, who was amazing. This man did not put up with anything. He had a schedule, he moved on the schedule and held everybody on both sides of it to a task. Now remember, these are major manufacturers that we're dealing with. He said, I'm not dealing with 2,000 cases. I'm going to pick 2 cases as our bellwethers. Bellwether sets the tone for other settlements that come down the line. He picked Summit and Cuyahoga. So first of all, no pressure, right? We did not ask for it. We got picked. But then reaching out to our communities because we had to justify the losses, the tangible dollar losses, and put all of those things together with our health departments. And it was a huge, huge, huge lift. At any rate, you can go back up. There were negotiations. Some of them settled ahead of time. Some of them did not. I'm sitting in federal court up in Cleveland, and my assistant chief of staff is behind me, and Deb is in the negotiating room, and the negotiations had been going on and they fell apart and going on. And my assistant chief of staff is poking me in the back. Look at your phone, look at your phone. I look at my phone, it says, we are desperately close to a settlement. I mean, the judge is coming in 15 minutes to the jury had already been picked. And we got, Deb, how much was the grant? Medication dollars that came. This was over a $300 million settlement between Summit and Cuyahoga. Now the split wasn't 50-50 between us and Cuyahoga. Their population is bigger. So Armin Budish, who's the executive up there, and I had to negotiate something. But over $300 million in cash and in medications. Anybody that's negotiating now, and we tell them don't take the medications. There were so many medications. We went to the state to ask them if they could help us distribute it to other communities that didn't have the settlement because we had more than we needed. And hindsight's 2020. We can't just give away. These are narcotics. So we had to work with the appropriate agencies to be able to do that. But to get that out. From there, we have the settlement. We are putting money into the community. We have a hierarchy that we built in order to get grants and put grants into place to get the money out into the communities. We have given out several $1 million. We are in the process now of forming a foundation. It'll be a fund probably of our Akron Community Foundation. So we can put some, we don't get a big return on the money that we get. So we're going to put it into a foundation that will be able to get better gains and then be able to be in perpetuity to throw off money annually around addiction and mental health. So that's the long-term plan. It's not in place yet. We're just looking, Deb just interviewed a firm that I think will help us create that. But we have the money. We're putting money in now. We're going to do some things in the short term. We are also building a technology platform so that all of our providers, whether that's the hospitals or smaller ones, we won't know who they are, but there'll be an identifier on them. So when they fall out of the system, they'll be able to have an intervention by whichever physician or appropriate authority is working with that person at the time. So we'll be able to help them stay in the system and get the help that they need. Again, big picture stuff. Okay. So that's the opiate thing in a snapshot. We talked about a regional dispatch center. They've been trying to do that for, I think, 25 years. When I came in, they told me 3 of our communities were going to do it. I said, that's nuts. I have to do it for the sheriff because it's based on volume. And now, as I said before, we have 18 of the 31 communities that will be there. Some are co-locating. That building is in Talmadge and it's being built. And that means bringing in all of the dispatchers together. But the technology, I don't know if this piece of it's up or not, but if you, God forbid, had a fire at your house, if you took a picture on your phone while you're calling 911 and sent it in, the fire department will know what they're walking into before they get there. Again, not any one community alone can afford to do that. Virtual courtroom. We, again, in partnership with the Fair Lawn Gig, we are no longer transporting 40 to 60 prisoners a day from our jail into the courtrooms. We have, in the jail, we have areas where they can talk to their clergy, they can talk to their attorneys. We do not have to move them. The safety factor for that, not only for the inmates, but for the deputies and the public as we're moving them forward, not to mention that is one of our highest costs of operating. Okay, so it's a win-win-win all the way around. Again, using technology. We have an age-friendly project with AARP to make a age-friendly living all across Summit County. It is a 5-year project that we're working on to make livable places regardless of where you are. And then again, if our communities want to opt into it, we're happy to have them come along. We were chosen by Upward Mobility. We were one of 8 counties across the country to be chosen for this Upward Mobility project. It is funded by the Gates Foundation. The money was, we're always glad to get the money, was about $125,000. But the resources that came along with it through Upward Mobility and the sharing between that and the other 8 counties across the country focused in on how do we impact poverty. If we could only do 1 or 2 things, what is it? This was, I think, an 18-month project talking to community members of all sizes, shapes, and varieties in our community to come up, and they narrowed it. It's a huge topic, narrowed it to 2 areas. Juvenile. Oh, thank you. Juvenile justice and mental health. If we could impact those 2, we will begin to work on affecting poverty. That's what the community told us. That's where our efforts going. A minority contract project, I heard over and over and over again. I'm a private sector person in public office. The rules are different. So when we say we have to have somebody in government that's in business, the rules are different. You have to have somebody that understands that they're different and how we can take the best of private industry and make it work in government because the structure is different. I can't just go give somebody a bonus. Just can't do it. In my past lives, I could. In this life, I can't. We have requirements about RFPs and a whole bunch of other things that the private sector doesn't have. That shouldn't stop us from doing and taking the best practices that we can and seeing how or if we can make it fit. So I kept hearing that bonding was a major issue for some of our minority companies. Can't get bonding, can't be a subcontractor on a big project. You can't. So we have developed the Minority Contract Access Capital. We'll call it MCAP because it's a lot to remember. Am I overdosing you with all these numbers? Okay. The idea here is it's a self-fulfilling fund. Okay, from these, I think, I don't know if I have the numbers in here, but something like we now have 40 contractors that have gotten over $2.5 million in subcontract work. So this is the 2nd or 3rd year of the program. So we're building the infrastructure to be able to have our small and minority businesses growing. Okay. Next slide. Okay. The CARES Act. COVID hits. The federal government says, got to do something. So because it was an emergency situation, and I am not casting aspersions on anybody, money just was put out. Because we are over 500,000 people, we got a direct allocation from the feds. Everybody else had to go, the money went from the feds to the state, and then the state had to decide how to send it out. So there was a delay in getting the money. We got money right off the bat. $94.4 million. We got it first quarter of the year. We had to spend it by the end of the year. Yeah. Mhm. By the way, if we put $94 million out, we're also responsible for every dollar that goes out. So in a very short time frame, with the guidelines not coming down really till the second quarter, it was a lot at the same time. So we did what we do in my administration. We went to our communities and we went to people who already were in, if you will, in the areas of providing these services. So the first thing that we did was we gave every one of our 31 communities money to pay for their police, fire, and EMS for the entire year. That is the biggest portion of most of their budgets. So we took that off their plate so they didn't have to worry about this. So they had freed up money for them to do other things in their community. Hudson got $634,000. 15 million went for rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. 23 households in Hudson received aids in 2020. Everybody thinks that if you live in Hudson or Green, that you don't have some problems. We know that that's not true. We don't, but it's not for us to decide. It's for the communities to decide. So I will tell you, as it relates to the rent and mortgage, there were other monies that have come down. Some of the communities in the state of Ohio have not spent their rent and utility money. Sherrod Brown, one of our US senators, was in maybe 18 months ago. And he said, you spent all of your rent and utility money. And he said, how did you do that? I said, we worked with our partners. We went to the United Way and to Malcolm Costa's. They provide these services for people. We gave them money. We built the programs with them, but they delivered it. We also, by the way, have an internal audit department. So anybody we gave money to, they worked with internal audit, and we came through with a clean audit for all of that money that went out. Because you got to be responsible for that as well. So they sent us another round of money because we put the money out. And about 2 months ago, the DeWine administration called my chief of staff and said, you guys have spent all your rent and utility money. We have it now lined up because they're changing the Medicaid rules in the state of Ohio, and that's going to cause a problem. They called and said, we don't want to send money. I'm shortcutting. I'm sure the language was much better than this. We don't want to send any money back to the feds. Can you take $50 million? I think we said we could take 15. To me, that's wonderful for Summit County, but these other communities, in my opinion, that's malpractice. They have to have people that have those needs if we have those needs. And it's not for me to say why, but I think they all had to do it themselves instead of using their community resources to get it done. Okay, 12 million for over 3,000 small businesses. Hudson got $951,000. These were businesses from 1 to 20 people when we talk about small business, not the SBA criteria. The virtual courtroom, public school districts, we sent all 17 of our public school districts money. Hudson got $458,000. And we put, $3.8 million into our arts and culture, and 3 organizations here in Hudson received grants. So again, we looked at our community. This money was used very tactically. We had to keep people in their homes. We had to keep our businesses open. We had to keep our fire and police, that kind of thing. Okay, next slide. I don't know how we're doing for time. I feel like I'm talking at, okay. We then now have the American Rescue Act money, which is $104 million. These are big numbers. I got to tell you, the last 6 years have been wild. This money we are using it very strategically. Okay, first phase was tactically. This is strategic with broadband, addressing sewer and water issues that have been problematic for many of our communities for a long time. And I can go on, but time doesn't allow. This is all to say that you have an organization, a county government standing behind you that is proactive, that is relationship driven, that wants to do the best for our communities that we can. And I can only do that with the collaboration and the relationships. And I got to tell you, in your personal lives, if you don't have a relationship with somebody and times get tough, it's really hard to have a conversation, isn't it? If you know somebody, you trust them and you have a relationship with them, you can talk about some of the hard things. Everybody that we called for that CARES money, even regardless of what was going on with COVID in their own shop and in their own lives, they said, executive, what do you need and how fast you need it? And that's the kind of working relationship that we will honor and we want to have at Summit County. I have been going on. We got 5 minutes. Questions? Have I overwhelmed you all? Dr. Jeff?
I have a comment or a question as a child psychiatrist. I've been involved with an evidence-based program that works with juvenile justice for over 20 years. Summit County had it briefly 25 years ago, but has never had it since. And it's called multi-systemic therapy. And it has 30 years of research that shows that it decreases kids being in the juvenile justice system. It is kind of coordinated around Case Western Reserve University Center of Innovative Practices. It was founded in Medical University of South Carolina, Dr. Scott Hengler. The Blueprints Against Violence for Kids put it as one of their top programs. It can't be funded enough by just Medicaid. The ADAM board or somebody has to give extra money. The therapists only have 6 families. They go there 2 or 3 times a week. Somebody's on call 24/7. They have a whole way of dealing with giving the parents the tools to deal with their difficult kids. And you work with the schools, the courts, the families, the community, putting together pro-social. So you look at the whole system.
Right.
So what I would recommend is that the county or somebody in the county look into this again, because it's a great resource.
Could you get the pertinent information to Deb so we can get into the hands of Judge Theodosio?
Right.
The people that are in
Right.
juvenile justice. She's our juvenile justice.
Yeah. And retired Summit County, I did it in Summit and Stark County. Retired Judge Mike Howard would be more than happy to talk about the program and how he saw it worked.
Good question. Other questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. This is a question that relates to the capacity of local communities to over time switch sooner than later to the use of renewable energy systems. So my question is this: one of the things that those of us that have been working in that arena have learned is that building codes in Summit County are administered by the county. And
Well, many of them, yeah.
the issue is that our county building codes might need a hard look
Oh,
to see how well they facilitate the transition, particularly with respect to whether it's commercial, industrial, or residential, but with respect to materials and design criteria that will enable solar, or there's even now coming residential wind energy that's not intrusive with huge
Windmills.
huge facilities.
Mhm.
So that's the question specific. And then the other question is whatever the county is able to do
Mhm.
to facilitate that transition at the utility level
That's a little different.
would be
That's a state.
useful.
That's a state. Yes, I think, but I appreciate that because you're absolutely right. We're changing, we're moving things. The world is moving. We are moving in that direction. We're moving in that direction, whether you agree with it or not. That money's coming down from the feds. Personally, I think it's a good idea. Why wouldn't we have every option? That includes coal, that includes every option that we possibly can. You have investments in your portfolios or whatever, you have diversification. Nuclear, I'm not the one to decide which ones those should be, but I think we should have choices. And as we face the new environment and the things that are going on in the future, how do we do that? So passing that along to our building department will certainly be something we do. State's a whole different level. but we can certainly talk about it. That's why I like to come out, because you get new ideas.
I was impressed by the fact that you pulled out all the funding that was for Hudson under the CARE Act. I don't recall seeing that in the Hudson Hub.
Mm. Okay, thank you. We put it out. Some people see it, some papers pick it up, some papers don't pick it up. We don't have any control over that. But again, if you understand the basic operating philosophy is, I want all the help that we can get. I just can't live with some of the strings that come along that make it so tight. But we have a good reputation at the state level. Again, we work across party lines and geographic lines. I said out of the state board and the national board of county executives, and we talk about these kinds of things and how do we work together. In this administration, we do our best to get as much money and resources out as we possibly can. These are big lifts. These are not easy projects to do. But if we have the relationships and we have willing participants in our community, then we are able to move it forward. And my objective is to have Summit County be stable, not only now, by the way, we have the top bond rating we can possibly get. And we've had it for years. It's not just because we have money coming in now. We want this community to be able to stay competitive and to be in a place where we can treat and keep all residents, regardless of their social economic status, in a good place and a quality of life that suits them. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for having me. I know it's a lot of information. Please just know we're here to help. Thank you. Not sure where this goes.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. What an informative, I just want to know, how do I get on the list the next time you have $94 million and you're looking to give it away? I want to find out how, how do I get on that mailing list? You know, that's the one I want. Thank you again for coming. We appreciate it. Ilene's on a very tight time schedule today, so we're going to give her a moment to go, and then we'll have a few minutes of business here at the end of our meeting. All right, so first thing in terms of announcements, we're still collecting for NAMI for these setting up homes for people who are transitioning into a new place to live. So items that you might use around the house, also cash if you want to donate to that. And so that's an important thing to finish. We have just a few more days. What is the date today? 28. So just a couple more days left in the month for that project. Is Marilyn, did I see Marilyn around here? I did. Marilyn, would you come up and tell us about the pollinator garden and what's going on with that?
I surely can. Just as we had a work day at the beginning of the spring to open the gardens, we're now going to be having another work day Monday, October 10th, beginning at 10 o'clock to kind of do a fall cleanup. It's not anticipated to be a real hard job. We're looking for possibly 6 volunteers for a period of about 90 minutes, maybe. And with that, we'll be doing some last minute weeding to try and get some of the grasses and thistles removed from the bed. We're hoping to retain many of the pollinator plants themselves because we know that they provide valuable seeds for the birds in the winter, as well as in their stalks. It's a good place for insects to overwinter. So we're working closely with Kurt Van Blarkum to get guidance as to the scope of the project, but we will be looking for volunteers to come out on Monday, October 10th at Ellsworth Hill.
What time?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, Monday, the 10th at 10.
10 till about
The 10th at
11:30.
10. Yeah. All right.
Okay, thank you.
While you're here, can I just have you, Marilyn, will you come up here for just a moment? I have something else all the way up. Yes. You just got sent to the principal's office. Yeah. And Bill, would you come up too? Bill Libby? Whilst you were away, Bill Libby nominated you for a special honor. And he's going to come up here and hand to you. If I can get it open, bear with me 1 second. A Paul Harris Fellowship honor, and so you're welcome into this fellowship of very few. Bill, would you like to say?
So anyone in this fellowship can honor anyone with a Paul Harris Fellowship. Your wife, a teacher, a friend, and someone who does extraordinary efforts within our club. And I thought, having worked in Rotary since 1979 in the Cleveland Club, this was a normal process that you would periodically honor someone with a Paul Harris Fellowship. The money goes into the foundation of Rotary International.
I am most humbled. My goodness, you are a wonderful friend. There's no doubting that. But I am most humbled by this action. Thank you very, very much. It means a lot to me. It does indeed.
Bill, don't take off yet. Bill. And part of the system in the Paul Harris is there are stones that are placed around this ring, and so Bill has now achieved the 5th of 5 stones in his Paul Harris ring as well. So congratulations. Are there any other items of business we need to cover that we haven't brought up? All right, so it looks like we have a moment for just a
Joe,
short
could I just
story.
mention
Yes,
also?
go ahead.
I mean, since Marilyn mentioned the pollinator garden at Ellsworth Hill, which by the way looks great, and that was a project of 2 years ago. The project that our Rotary Club and the other Rotary Club did this year was a pollinator garden at East Woods School. That's a smaller one. It's around the flagpole in the, I guess you'd call it I call it the oval in front of East Woods. It's a beautiful garden. It's very different than the one at Ellsworth Hill, but it's beautiful and it's taking shape very nicely. It's rooted well. It's doing what this rain has been fabulous for it. And I just wanted everyone to know if they go to that school, take a look at it. It's going to be fabulous, even much more so next year, I think. But it's something that our school can be proud of. I mean, our clubs can be proud of. I know the schools are, and I know the plan is to do more of these within the school district at the other buildings over time. And I'm really proud of our involvement in that.
Yeah, great. Good work. Thanks, Tom, for bringing that up. But it is it's a good thing that we're involved in this community and making it a more beautiful and more sustainable place to live. David. Okay, there are some bags in the back bags of. I'll be right back. Yeah, bags of. Oh, just information. Okay, all right. Yeah. I'm deluged with information. Money is what I'm lacking. All right. All right. So quick story. And this was about this woman, Terry Horton. She lives in California. A number of years ago, was out thrift shopping, and she was at a thrift store in San Bernardino. Her neighbor had just moved into this mobile home near hers and was mentioning that she needed some artwork to put on her wall. So Terry is looking around and she comes along this rather large painting, and it's like 6 foot tall by 4 feet wide, or if you turn it the other way, 4 feet tall, 6 foot. And she thought, well, it was really quite ugly. It's just a sort of an abstract, but it covers a lot of wall space. And she thought, well, the price is right. It was $5. So she would buy it for her friend. And so she buys it and takes it to her friend. And her friend looks at it and, kind of winces a little bit and says, oh, it's so sweet of you, Terry, to think of me. And and I could use something to put on my walls, but there's just no way I would put that on my wall. And so I'm really grateful. And so Terry schleps it back to her house and, try to think, what am I going to do with it? And she had a garage sale coming up, and she thought, well, I'll just stick in the garage sale and see how it goes. And she takes it out to the garage sale area on the day of the sale. And this fellow comes by who's an art teacher in the area, and he's looking at it and studying it for a while. And he says to her, Terry, I think you actually have something here. You probably do not want to sell this in the garage sale. And she said, well, what do you mean? He says, this looks like a Jackson Pollock. And she said, who the F is Jackson Pollock? They made a documentary called "Who the F is Jackson Pollock." I don't think of the F as just the F, but who is Jackson Pollock? And so several authenticators came and checked it out, and several agreed this is indeed an original Jackson Pollock painting. A Saudi collector showed up at her home and offered her $9 million. And she told him, sorry, pal, that's not enough. And sent him packing. And I thought how that story, it's hideous, it's ugly, it's nasty. I wouldn't hang that on my wall. But I turned down $9 million when I realized what it's really worth. Oh, you never know what you might find in this world and what things might be really worth. Have a great day. Oh, whoa. Oh, Rhoda Buck. Yeah, everybody wants their money. Payouts $10. Tom? Yeah. All right. 599-649. Oh, my word. Don't you spend this all in one place? All right.
Make sure.
I believe him. Give that. Then I went in there. Oh, not this week. All right. Hey, have a great day, everybody.